Campbell.
And I'm Ron Jackson.
Cerebral conversations on disability liberation and integration. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cerebral Conversations, episode 26. This is Cerebral Conversations, conversations on disability liberation and integration. I'm CJ Campbell.
And I'm Ron Jackson.
Ron, let's get
Cerebral.
boom! So, we're a day late, which I will explain in a little bit, but why don't you tell me about your wonderful week?
My week has been pretty wonderful because I'm starting to plan for one of my favorite holidays, Thanksgiving. Just because.
I wonder why it's your favorite holiday.
Because you get to eat and watch football. There's not much better in the whole world.
I can think of a couple things that might be a little bit better, but that'll be a conversation for another day.
Yes.
So, anything else going on?
And there is some controversy in the UFC.
Tell me about this.
Because George St. Pierre, who has been the welterweight champion for like 6 years, fought Johnny Hendricks last Saturday night. And most people who saw the fight think Johnny Hendricks won. However, the judges gave George St. Pierre the fight by split decision. And after the fight, George St. Pierre said he's going to retire.
I thought he said he was going to just step away from fighting.
Well, basically, he said he's going to retire now.
I'm going to have to disagree with you. That's okay.
That's okay.
Is there anything else going
on? Not really.
Well, let me explain why we're a day late. It's not a very great excuse, but it's the truth. So, I have been really struggling the last few weeks with insomnia, which has also made my anxiety go through the roof. And I forgot that it was Wednesday until about 6 p.m. Yesterday. And the scary part about it is that I don't remember anything really before Sunday, after Sunday, other than I remember Sunday, and I remember looking at my computer and seeing that it said Tuesday. And then the next thing I remember is falling asleep for, I think, an hour and a half, and then having a knock on my door, and it's my friend Chris. And I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, well, I'm here to pick you up for confirmation, because I volunteer to teach confirmation at the church that he's a youth pastor at. And I was like, wait, it's Wednesday? He's like, yeah. So I had no recollection of Monday or really like the whole day of Tuesday. So I left Ron hanging, and I left all you hanging, and I apologize. Other than that, I really don't have a whole lot going on. I did watch a great documentary on J.D. Salinger, author of Catcher in the Rye.
Great book, I must say.
Yeah, also, at the end of the documentary, it's revealed that the trust that J.D. Salinger left all of his writing to will be releasing his writings, his unpublished writings now. Because the interesting thing is that he never wrote or published anything significant after, I believe, 1961. So he never published a novel after his hit, Catcher in the Rye, but wrote his entire life.
Wow.
Yeah. So we have a wonderful interview.
Yes, we do.
We're gonna finish out the series with a couple interviews. This one is from our mutual friend Amber Maurer, who uh, we're getting some lady perspective, which is nice. It's not something we usually get the opportunity to have.
It's always good to hear from the ladies.
Yeah, and usually with interviews, I let them go a little bit longer because it's so rare to get outside perspectives, um, rather than you and I, and especially to get female perspective of disability is just a rarity for this show. So if it's a little long, I apologize. But without further ado, here is the interview with our neighbor and friend Amber Maurer. Hey everybody, CJ Campbell here, and I'm here to have a great conversation with my close friend and dear neighbor. This is Miss Amber Maurer.
Hi CJ, how are you doing?
Good. Why don't you say hello to all the cerebral conversationalists?
Hello. Just to let everyone know, I have the fake palsy. I do not have cerebral palsy.
Ron tends to judge those of us that have the fake palsy. I actually do have cerebral palsy, but Ron likes to say that I have the fake palsy because I don't have as much palsy as he does. Yes, I guess there's even ableism in the crippled world.
There is.
All right, so you don't have cerebral palsy.
No, I don't. It is something kind of completely different. It is called spinal muscular atrophy type 2. Kind of a weird word, but it exists.
Sounds sexy.
Kind of.
Okay, so why don't you explain to us what is that like for you, and like how does that affect your body?
It affects a lot. It's kind of different from cerebral palsy, mostly because I've never walked at all, ever, unless I was a baby. I could stand against a wall, but I basically have very weak leg muscles. I've actually had to have surgeries because another problem that happens with it is that your spine starts to curve, which can cause a lot of problems. That's known as scoliosis of the spine.
Yeah. Actually, a lot of people don't know this, but that's actually a common problem among the palsied brothers and sisters. For some reason, our spines just aren't our friends.
No, definitely not.
So, this is something that occurred at birth.
Yeah, it happens when your parents have 2 recessive genes, and even if they both happen to have that, it's only a 1 in 4 chance that the child will get it. So it's pretty uncommon.
So you would call yourself a lottery winner because you won the genetics lottery.
Yeah, if you want to call it that. Not really.
Hashtag winning.
Definitely a win.
Well, the parking is great.
That's true. One of the many perks.
Yeah. So we are in the midst of a series on Cerebral Conversations about love, sex, and dating. And I think we would be morally remiss if we didn't have some of the estrogen persuasion on the show, a little bit of the ladies' perspective. So obviously I brought you on the show. Why don't you share a little bit of just like your overall love experience? Have you dated, and what's that been like for you? Maybe a good place to start would be the beginnings of when you first started kind of like noticing people as sexually attractive. How was that experience for you in that transitional period?
Yeah, actually, I have dated. My first boyfriend actually was in 8th grade. He also happened to be in a wheelchair, but it was because of an accident. So he was paralyzed from the waist down, and that's about the time I started really noticing guys in that way. But I also kind of, I dated that guy for almost, a year, but
Wow, that's like forever in that in that stage of life.
I definitely kind of ran into a few problems because when you have two people that are in a wheelchair that are in a relationship, there's not a lot that you can do. Yeah, you can hold hands, maybe kiss, but I got to thinking what more can happen when both of us have physical limitations.
So you're kind of in an awkward place, in an awkward time of your life where like you're kind of experiencing bits of sexuality and kind of looking like, okay, well, where can this go?
Exactly, like.
Yeah, because I mean, I can imagine. I mean, I know for just being a human being, being a young man, not knowing anything about sex, and just that being like a complete like, all right, so like, what do I do here? But then to throw in this X factor of not only does one person have a non-conventional body, but another person does as well.
Yes.
So, so obviously that was a bit of a struggle for you.
Mm-hmm.
And was there a point where that kind of came to a head?
Yeah, as the relationship progressed, I just kind of noticed we mostly just hung out, played video games. The sexual attractiveness just kind of diminished, and I'm like, maybe this isn't a relationship. We're just kind of hanging out, being friends, and it ended really smoothly because it was kind of mutual. There just wasn't a connection there that I thought. I kind of maybe just sleeped into it thinking, hey, I can have a boyfriend and I'm in a wheelchair, but there just wasn't anything attractive there, so it ended pretty smoothly.
So, what was your experiences with how people reacted to you dating another crippled brother?
Um, it's kind of good and bad. I kind of felt because I was in a relationship that people respected me more and saw me as, somewhat normal, but then on the other hand, I kind of worried about their opinion, thinking, oh, well, look how cute two people together in a wheelchair. That's probably all that she's gonna date because they have more in common. It's just maybe what people expect to be normal.
Mm-hmm. I know that I've never dated a crippled sister in any sort of serious way. I've only really been attracted, I think, maybe to other people with disability,
Mm-hmm.
and but I know that sometimes I definitely pick up on people's perceptions
Mm-hmm.
of my able-bodied girlfriend and I being out together, and like, oh, that's really cute, like they're a cute little couple, and it's kind of this. It kind of almost feels like it's a novelty to them,
Right.
and that's certainly a struggle. So, um, now, as you hit this point of like puberty and kind of like discovering yourself as a woman, um, how has your understanding of being a woman and grasping at your femininity, like what has that process been like for you as someone with disability?
Um, as that came about, I after I didn't have a boyfriend for a while, I kind of worried that, you know, later on I would want to have some experiences that any woman would, but I didn't know if that would happen because I kind of thought I need to be with someone who is physically abled, or how is it physically going to happen? And I didn't have much hopes of someone who was, you know, not physically limited to be able to look past, just what they see on the outside, which is, you know, a woman who is going to come with a lot of maybe needs and baggage.
Mm-hmm. Did, did did you feel a lot of pressure to like prove your womanhood or like prove like your ability to be a good partner at that point, or has that been?
Yeah, I can say that. kind of hard to put into words, but just if you are a woman who's in a wheelchair, because obviously there's a lot of things you can't do, maybe there is that kind of, you know, pressure to, trying to think how to say this. I don't know. I remember being a teenager just really every day wanting to put on a lot of makeup and get my hair dyed and just be as outwardly physically attractive as I could be, where maybe if I was able-bodied I wouldn't feel that need to.
Yeah, I mean, I know from my own experience as a male, and body image has always been a really tough thing for me. Um, as you know, I struggle with anorexia, which is rare for men in general, but I noticed that, like, I mean, there is a strong pressure on women in our society to fulfill every possible need of of a man sexually, but then also just be on top of everything. And it seems like to me that in the world and the realm of disability where you have to accept limitations, um, that I've really noticed with the limited interaction and experience that I've had with women with disability is that there is almost this just like expectation of just like you have to be the most perfect person that you can possibly be. Otherwise, it's like there's no possible way that anyone will find any worth in you.
Yeah.
Like that's something that I've really seen a lot with in women, and I know for me, like I've talked about um, this with Alicia, that I feel like I have to be like this perfect person emotionally, um, or I have to be a perfect boyfriend, like and have like no sort of like emotional needs or like any sort of baggage because because my partner in life is gonna have to deal with just so much stuff that she wouldn't have to deal with an able-bodied person. And something that I've really noticed is like um, with my conversations with women is like that there's such a thing of like, okay, well, I have to be like the most sexiest crippled sister in the world.
Yes.
And like I've even talked to some able-bodied guys about like if they've ever been attracted to a crippled sister, and they're like, well, yeah, there's this one girl, and she was really flirty. Uh, has that been any part of your experience? Do like you feel like a added pressure to like be more flirty?
Um, I don't know if I would call it flirty, but I kind of ran into this when I was in college, but just trying to absolutely look as best that I could, dress very, nice, just, yeah, maybe sometimes just try to be flirtatious, but just do absolutely anything I could to, you know, make them think that I acted like any other woman would,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe just somehow get their attention, but not like over the top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine like how stressful it is. I know that like I think every crippled brother or sister, really tries hard to pass themselves off as like quote unquote normal to show
Yeah.
like that they're just a person.
Right.
Um, but there's this whole, I mean, there is such a high standard of like beauty in our culture, but especially a added pressure to women. That was a good one.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. It's not a problem. So You are dating now,
Yes.
and you guys. How long have you guys been dating?
It'll be 3 years in February.
Dang.
That's kind of a record for me. Period.
And he's able-bodied, correct?
Correct.
And you guys actually cohabitate.
We do.
How did that start? How did you guys meet?
I was going out with a friend to do some karaoke at a local bar here. I just wanted to go out, have a good time, you know. Had a really bad date beforehand, so I was just gonna blow off some steam, and just so happened that he also likes doing karaoke, even though he can't sing really well. But it's true. That's how we ended up. We just talked, and that's where we first met.
And what was his reaction to disability?
Actually, when I got to talk to him, you know, we hung out a few times at the mall or whatever. Actually, it didn't really affect him because he had a family member who also had some problems, and I think it makes a difference. Like, even if you have like a sibling like that grows up around it, they kind of learn to see past that.
Awesome. So, you guys live together, and you are in a situation where you do have a lot of care needs.
Right.
Has it been difficult for you guys to balance the caregiver slash partner relationship?
Oh yeah. It's it's more difficult than anyone watching this can probably imagine because you rely on that person to help you with your needs, like, you know, day to day, get dressed, whatever. But then also you run into this conflict where you are their boss, but then it kind of is like you have this role conflict because in a relationship, usually it isn't one person, you know, telling them, hey, do this, I need help with this. So, kind of balancing the boyfriend and caregiver role is it's very hard to deal with. Can be quite frustrating.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can just imagine that. I mean, like, like there's like no like time clock, and it's probably just pretty difficult because like, well, we were just hanging out watching a movie, but now you want me to mop the floor or something.
Yeah.
Like I can imagine that that's very difficult for your boyfriend, and also that's just difficult for you to kind of manage. And I would imagine that I know I have a really hard time asking my friends for help because I want to keep my friends as my friends.
Right.
And whenever I need help, like a ride to the grocery store or someone to mop my floors, like there is this kind of weird little dynamic change. What do you think is the and I guess I would imagine that it takes an incredible amount of trust in that person.
Yeah. When me and my boyfriend first started going out, he wasn't my caregiver right away. We just hung out. You know, he didn't even move in right away, but I ended up having difficulties with one of my PAs after we had been dating a few months. And sometimes you just have to think, because I thought on one hand, oh, I trust this person because I know he genuinely cares about me, but you kind of have to think about in the long run what that'll be like, because if you need help with more than just cleaning, even simple day-to-day tasks like you rely on that person, and if there's, let's say you guys getting a little tit for tat, or that person just having a bad day, or you're having a relationship argument, but you still rely on that person, and you don't want them to ever think that, oh, you're running them ragged or you're a hassle. So it's just, you gotta think about that as well.
Mm-hmm. Um, so, what advice would you give someone that's either considering having their girlfriend or boyfriend become their caregiver, um, or just somebody who is planning to cohabitate with their partner?
Um, I Let's start because I think it's a little bit different. I definitely think you should give it a little time before you cohabitate, but I think with the right person, it's really a good thing. But I do think it's another matter if you're considering having your significant other, no matter how long you've been dating, take that leap of being your caregiver, because it may start out really well, but can also, I'll give you this scenario. Let's say you still really love them, as your boyfriend, but you think, oh, I don't like the way that he mops, or I think his cooking is really crap. You really care about that person, so then how does that work in with, well, I still maybe want to be your boyfriend or girlfriend, but maybe I want someone else. If you ever hire someone, family, boyfriend, whatever, think, what if it doesn't work out? Then what is that going to do to your relationship? Not as a client, and personal assistant, but just as your personal relationship with them.
Mm-hmm. Um, what has been like? I have like two more questions. One is what has been something that you've really learned uh, in this experience, um, as far as like learning kind of like boundaries and stuff.
Um, what I have learned through this experience is when you do have someone who is your boyfriend or girlfriend, your personal assistant, what have you, that just because, maybe on paper they work for you, you can't necessarily abuse that either. Make sure that you do set time where you have them do what they need to do, but don't forget that they are your boyfriend and you need to have time away from that, go to a movie, go on romantic places. Like, it's like I said, very hard to balance, and you just, you can't forget that they also are someone that you're dating and not just your caregiver.
Mm, that is some solid advice. Um, Obviously, I don't have any really personal experience, but uh, knowing Ron and knowing you and knowing a couple other people who do have close relationships with their PAs or that they're related to their PAs in some way, shape, or form, like it's a hard struggle.
Mm-hmm.
Another struggle that happens when you're dealing with relationships, romantic relationships, and disability is there's kind of an added uncertainty to future and marriage and living together is always kind of like this legal gray area. Um, do do you have like a lot of struggles with worrying about the future, or do you have a lot of hope for the future? Where do you kind of feel like your future is?
Um, well, I can, I do have hopes for the future with me and my boyfriend. Sure, we do have are tits for tats, but it is very hard to find someone who does understand you and completely just looks at you and not at your condition. But I also have my worries because I feel like I need to have a very successful um, job, or Daniel does, before we can consider marriage um, because of my disability, I do get Social Security, but if I were to legally get married, that goes away along with a lot of my medical benefits. So it's a risk, but also it's kind of, to me, limiting and almost makes me sad just knowing I really love someone, but I can't easily, get married in Vegas like two able-bodied people can.
Hmm. It's really hard, and I actually, um, Alicia actually called me out on this the other night. Is she's like, you're always, whenever I bring up something positive about the future, you're always like want to correct me and like make sure that I realize how hard everything is going to be, and everything is kind of in this negative place for the future. And she was totally right. But at the same time, I was like, I don't know what to do, because I want to, be able to give you this awesome, awesome future with tons of certainty and security. But I just have no idea how all that's going to happen, and I know how hard it is.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the disability experience that we have here in this country is one where you have to get used to dreams being broken.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
It is.
And I think that that's why your story here today is so important, is for people to realize that you're not alone in this struggle, that you're not the only one who isn't sure about their future. And like the thing that I try to keep in mind is that nobody's future is guaranteed, and yeah, like there's some added uncertainty.
Definitely.
And it's really hard to hold on to hope, but I know that something that Alicia always tells me is, we'll cross that, like we'll figure it out, and that we don't have to figure it all out right now. And that's been huge. It's hard. It is incredibly hard to trust like that.
Yeah, and I know you kind of know this, but it's kind of hard for me because I'm one of those people that worry about stuff like months before they happen. I'm like, oh, well, this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen, and this is going to be terrible.
And it's always the worst case scenario.
Worst case scenario is what I usually think about.
Mm-hmm.
So.
It's hard, especially when you're living in poverty, and we have, even in the poverty world, we have less options than most.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I definitely feel like hope and planning for the future, those are luxuries,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like when my money's really tight and I need to go grocery shopping, like I don't buy luxuries then. So like, why plan for 5 or 6 months from now or a year from now when I don't even know if I'm going to make it through the month?
Mm-hmm.
But I guess it's one of those things where that's when you have to really hold on to like hope and love, and just like there's no way to make a relationship work without hope and trust.
Yeah, that's true.
Is there anything else that you would like to kind of leave people before you say goodbye?
I kind of just wanted to say this to any woman who may be watching this with a physical, any sort of disability you may feel that you have, is just really try to find someone, if you are looking, that just really appreciates you, and don't think just because you have a disability that you, even though it may feel you have this pressure, don't just settle for anyone. You deserve to have someone who does treat you special, even if society makes you feel like you have to be in a relationship. Just don't settle for anyone and make sure it's someone who truly loves you.
Awesome. Before we let you go, if people were looking to contact you, is there a way that you're comfortable with them doing that, or would you rather just stay private?
No. If you want, you may email me. I have a Hotmail account. It's Amber Maurer. I can spell that for you. AMBERMAURER @hotmail.com, and feel free to email me if you have any thoughts or questions, and I can get back to you with my input.
Awesome. Well, I want to personally thank you on behalf of Ron. You make a pretty good partner.
Thank you.
You're not on Ron's level, but there's
No.
very few of us that can reach those great heights.
Very few.
But I would like to once again present to you Amber Maurer, my very dear friend and neighbor. And why don't you tell them to keep it cerebral?
Keep it cerebral.
Bye, guys. How about that cerebral conversation?
That seemed very cerebral. Thank you, Amber.
Yeah, thank you again, Amber. And be sure, for those of you that are looking to get some advice or get more of her thoughts, or just looking for someone to connect with, she very graciously gave out her personal email address. Please do not abuse it, but I highly suggest for those of you that are maybe looking for some advice or some perspective on dating with disability, and also having your significant other be a caretaker as well. I would really encourage that. So with that, we will wrap up episode 26. And really quickly, just as a heads up, we announced last week that we will be having another Chairside Chat December 2nd, which is a Sunday, at 7 p.m. Central Time. So be sure to check out our Facebook page.
If I may interject, it's actually December 1st.
You're right, December 1st. Sorry, insomnia brain.
It's okay.
December 1st, and that'll be at 7 p.m. Central Time, and you can RSVP via the event page that'll be on our Facebook page, which is at facebook.com/cerebralconversations. You can also find us on Twitter.
We have a handle.
What is that handle?
At Cerebral Combos.
Absolutely. Also, you can email us your stories, your personal feedback, show ideas, any sort of thing at cerebralconversations@gmail.com. And you can check out my personal blog entitled The Running Search at cjcampbell.tumblr.com. Where can they get hold of you, Ron?
You can find me at Facebook by looking under Ron Jackson.
Also, he's on a vampire game on Facebook.
Yes, I am.
Join his brood.
Join the dark side.
All right, until then,
keep it cerebral.
peace.